For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love. Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work. Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating? Please, 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 I'm going to start it. I'm going to get it out of the way. Tomorrow is Election Day. If you haven't done so already, vote, vote, vote. You know, it's interesting. Last night on our Let That Go show, we had Aaron Grillor on the show, well-known astrologer, and he said, when you cast your ballot, just simply say these words: I'm voting for the good of all concerned. And I think that if we all do that, perhaps everything's going to work out the way that everything is scheduled to roll out. I also want to mention, I don't know where a lot of you are tonight, but here in New York, I'm going to, first of all, bring on my guest so we can just jump right into it. Will Nunziata, I am so glad you're here. Have you been out tonight?
I have, yes.
Have you seen the moon?
I didn't get to look. You know what it is?
My God.
I need to look up more.
You need to look up more. Here in Rockland County, the moon is as big as a pizza pie, as they say. I mean, it is enormous. It is such a gorgeous moon. And of course, everybody in New York, we're having what they used to refer to as an Indian summer. And everybody, I had a doctor's appointment. People are in shorts in November walking around, and there's this feeling of spring in the air. And so hopefully everyone's having a good night, and we're going to have an even greater night 24 hours from now. So, but tonight we have Will Nunziata on the show. And about a week or two ago, I had your brother on the show. And how lucky are we in New York and beyond that we get two Nunziatas? I mean, you guys are just the best. And
Did my mother pay you, Richard? Come on,
it was such an honor to have him on the show. And now we're going to start with you tonight. I want to ask, who or what are you celebrating tonight?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, before I get started, Richard, I know I told you off camera, but it's really important that I mention that what you do here is really important. To be seen, to be heard, to be connected, now more than ever, you provide that safe space. And it's not very often as an artist where we get that safe space. So first and foremost, I wanted to thank you. And the shows that you do are absolutely incredible.
Well, I want to thank you for that. And let's talk about safe spaces. I think that's a great jumping off part. We got a lot of the history. Go and watch the show. But when did you feel safe the first time on stage in front of an audience?
My goodness. Well, I know my brother probably mentioned this, but for those who didn't see his, I was the kid. I knew I needed to be a part of it, New York, for as long as I can remember. I remember, I would say the first time I remember vividly, I was in nursery school. I was 4 years old. I sang. I got up on the table of the lunch table of nursery school and decided, of course, not to sing in up-tempo, which would have been so much more appropriate. Like, from this musical called Oliver, it would have been appropriate if I sang, Food, Glorious Food. But of course, I wanted the audience to lean in from day one. So I, of course, sang Where Is Love from Oliver.
Wonderful.
And I just remember, Richard, 4.5 years old, just like literally getting up on stage, literally waiting for everyone to quiet down, and then just going, where is love? There was a trauma being released by little old Will at 4.5 years old, singing Where is Love on the lunch table. But so to answer your question, I would say it was nursery school.
I have to say this, Sumitsuki, who I love, Sumitsuki said that when she was a young girl, she would get up and she would sing Love for Sale which is not really an appropriate song for a little girl to be singing. I mean, every time I hear her tell this story, it just cracks me up to hear her tell that story. But did you feel instantly that this was where you belonged? And what was it, if you can recall in your 4-year-old self, that compelled you to get up on that table to sing in the first place?
I think it's the same thing that when I was performing all the way up through when I was 34 years old, performing professionally from when I was 10 to 34, it was the same North Star I had at 4 years old. I love making people smile. And it always remained my North Star. I would, even if I could just make one person, I know as hokey as it sounds, but truly
Fine.
there was just something within me. If I could just make one person smile, period, end of story.
Do you recall the first time that you were aware that there was a world out there that was called show business, that it was something that you were gravitating towards?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it was from my family. I mean, although my father, he is an amazing creative director in advertising, worked with Saatchi and Saatchi. So I knew of some sort of, there was a biz of show, but it was really my mom's dad, whom I'm named after. His name was Bill Wendell. And he was one of the original NBC staff announcers with Don Pardo in the 40s, and later became the announcer of game shows such as Tic-Tac-Toe, To Tell the Truth, Ernie Kovacs. But it was really in the 80s and 90s when he was the announcer of David Letterman, both at NBC and later CBS. He would come to these dinners during the holidays. And I just remember open ears and eyes, hearing about these stories of how real show business people were, because, my grandfather as the announcer would get to eavesdrop in on these people before the camera light went on. And I was always asking, it's no wonder I'm a director now, because all I'm about is digging and peeling back the onion. It wasn't about what fancy person did you meet? I was what were they right before that light went on? And I wanted to know how they felt, what their demeanor was, how they treated the stage crew, how they treated you. I was just so it was really, to answer your question, Richard, my grandfather, Bill Wendell.
That's great. Well, a lot of people who are not in the business may not get a sense of where I'm going with this, but those of us who are in the business, we know what it's like to aspire to be in the spotlight. But you learn very quickly that it's really about collaboration. It's about all the people. It's the person running the spotlight.
That's right.
About the people that sell the tickets to get you to your seat. It's all those things. When did you first become aware of collaboration? And I'm asking these questions and going down a path because you are such a brilliant director. When did you first start learning about collaboration?
I mean, my God, literally, I know this sounds awful, and I hope everyone's eating their dinner, but in the womb. I mean, I literally was born into a collaboration, and
that's true.
You know what I mean? Thank God the egg split, but that's for me and my therapist, Richard.
Yeah, well, I had Sheila Evans on here the other day, and she said that I should be a therapist. So
it's so good. Again, talking about seeing and hearing, and it was in that collaboration with my brother, as my brother, but also professionally for almost 25 years. I just learned naturally what it is to share one's ideas, but that best idea truly wins. And so it definitely just began from an early age with my brother, collaborating with him and negotiating a lot of big opinions with someone who also happened to look like me.
Well, I don't know if your mom is watching tonight, but if she is, and she'll see this at some point, I hope, I want to say kudos to her, because two things that I learned from having Anthony on the show is, number one, that she really stressed with both of you your individuality, which I think, God bless her.
Yeah.
And, in going to school, you basically went in your opposite directions, but of course you came together for those moments when it was going to be beneficial for both of you, which I think is very important. So congratulations on all of that.
Yeah, she was great. I mean, my mom, my dad, even my, God bless my sister, the normal one who is not in the circus of showbiz. You know, just growing up, the fact that they had my brother and I, my parents had my brother and I in elementary school in separate classes. It really gave us that space, that safe space to be ourselves and not just one of the twins, but Will and Anthony. So I'm grateful for my parents for that.
Now, we've talked about that pull to get you on the stage. Do you remember the first time that you went to see either a Broadway show or a concert or something, and what that experience was like for you?
Absolutely, Richard. I remember seeing Showboat, Hal Prince's revival of Showboat. And while, you know, you might think,
Don't tell me how old you are, because I saw it in previews in Toronto.
Richard, I'm 38 going on 98, kid. Okay. Literally. I remember having a discussion with my parents who were like, what? After I saw Showboat, I could not stop looking at what Hal Prince did with that stage as a chessboard. The way that he used those beautiful actors as beautiful pieces on a board, and the way that he moved them deliberately. That was the first thing I ever picked up on. It was never, oh my God, I want to play that part, or oh my God. It was all about, I know this sounds so hokey woke, but I'm glad you asked it, you know, as a 9-year-old, looking at the chessboard, how a stage could be used as a chessboard, and how bodies on a stage could optically be seen and told a story, plus the interweaving. It was like a patchwork on stage, and how the music became a thread in that patchwork, how the staging, how the set, the costumes, the lighting, the soundscape, how everything was the thread keeping this patchwork of a chessboard together. 10 years old, I didn't even ever know what directing was really until college, but I realized that my love of theater actually began with seeing it from 30,000 because of Hal Prince's production of Showboat, which was at the then Gershwin, which I don't think was called the Gershwin then. Was it the Uris?
No, it was called the Gershwin at that time.
It was the Gershwin.
I remember one moment in that production where, after Old Man River, and there was a backdrop of cotton fields. Do you remember this?
You bet your bottom dollar.
And the actor literally reached up and grabbed the entire, I mean, this huge backdrop. Of course, it was rigged to the point where it would come crashing down. And I mean, I have chills still thinking about that, because it was such an incredible moment in that production. And of course, that was the first time I saw on stage Rebecca Luker.
Oh, Richard, I mean, talk about a voice and a light. And I mean, and you know, it was the first time I saw Elaine Stritch on stage, and little old theater geek Will. I knew I'd always did my homework, and I'm all about going to the source material, even at 9 years old. And so I listened to the original album. So when I saw that Parthy was getting the song, oh God, Richard, what was it that she sang to the baby?
Why do I love you?
I was like, oh my God, that's genius. And I want to know who that Elaine Stritch was, because there's something about her. And then of course I become obsessed with her moving forward. But just the way that Hal was able to bring new light to a show that was written so many years ago, but yet him looking back to look forward. I just remember feeling that it was so pertinent then, now more than ever. And to that point too, that beautiful moment that you mentioned with Old Man River, it was one of those moments that I look back on, that I'm like, wow, that there are specific moments of breath that can occur in a theater piece, that when they happen, they matter, that you don't do too many, that you can have something be relentless and moving like a locomotion. I like to say, you know, sometimes we want to go express from Grand Central to New Haven, but when we stop at 125th, make it matter. That's a 125th Street moment that you mentioned.
Absolutely. Well, you both basically embarked on this career together, performing in concerts and everything. But in the back of your mind, were you always thinking about the direction and where you wanted to go with that? And forgive me for going where I'm about to go, were you I mean, did you feel that even working together, that the directorial side of you was bubbling to come out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially after college, Richard. I mean, look at Anthony and I had so many beautiful opportunities in middle school, singing professionally, coming to the city, doing jingles. High school, we got, we were varsity athletes. We sang in the musicals. We started in the musicals. We were like freaks of nature. But I knew that at college, I lived in the theater. I lived in that theater department. Anthony went for journalism. But I lived in that theater, and it wasn't until, even though, again, we had beautiful opportunities in college together to perform, with the Boston Pops and, and things of that nature, where I realized I had to pursue the thing with singing, but that one day I would enter being a director. But it really was, I graduated college, and I was the assistant to Lonnie Price on the 2007 revival of 110 in the Shade. And I'll never forget that process of being able to eavesdrop in on some of my favorite actors' work, Steve Kazee, Audra McDonald, John Cullum. And I realized, Richard, in that experience, I hope Lonnie isn't watching, but that I was a really bad assistant, but I had too many ideas. And I was like, I think I need to pursue this thing with Anthony until I feel like I have all the tools in my arsenal to enter in as a director and a creator. And I couldn't, for some people it's great, Richard, and God bless them. I knew I couldn't go the assistant associate route.
If we can talk about that for just a moment.
Yes.
When you had this job working with Lonnie Price, one of the best, did you, was it, obviously this, I mean, do you consider that your first big break on that side of the realm, or were there other steps leading up to that? And I ask this question because as you were doing this, were you able, some people can, some can't, to just go, wow, this is where I belong, and I'm going to observe and study? I had a teacher in school, and she ended every class by saying, read, reread, and take notes. And I always think about that with all that I do. Were you able to just sit back and, I mean, not just sit back, but to sit back and observe what was going on? Or did you really have that pull to be in the center ring?
I really made a deliberate decision, Richard, to be a student. And I'm so grateful I did, because that's something that is still so much a part of who I am as an artist, as a director, as a human, that the moment I stop being a student, I really need to investigate if it's worth doing. I think there's a certain sense of wonder and curiosity I've always had. Again, going back to like the story with my grandfather, I was always asking questions. I was that annoying person who was just constantly asking questions. And so, again, going back to, I was a bad assistant. I was fine, but I was just constantly asking questions. And I'm so grateful I made the deliberate decision at that point, Richard, to be a student and an observer. And I still feel like that.
Now, as you were being pulled in that direction, were there specific directors that you really emulated or aspired to be like, or that you studied, speaking of being a student? Who were the directors that stand out for you? And in your opinion, what do you consider makes them each a great director?
Great question. You're so good at this, Richard. Has anyone told you that lately?
It's nice to hear it again, so thank you.
I think at that point, just graduating college, I think I had two North Stars at the time. It was Hal Prince and Jerry Zaks. For Hal Prince, I loved that he was very much a dramaturgical and conceptual director. Mm-hmm. That he was able to take a piece, place a concept. I know I hate that word, but I'll just go with it because I can't think of any other one. I thought he was able to kind of frame a story to really heighten the stakes and the truth of the matter. So Hal has always been and continues to be a North Star for me, and was, especially when I first, in that first 110 in the Shade experience. And for Jerry, my love of his knack of comedy. I feel like in my studying of Jerry Zaks and his productions, thank God we have that beautiful resource. And I hope that everyone out there, especially those youngins, again, I'm 38 going on 98.
Oh, so way beyond that.
Really, it was going to Lincoln Center Performing Arts Library and seeing all these great artists' productions. And with Jerry, I really still marvel at his ability to get into the rhythm of a show. I feel like he's able to gauge a temperature and a rhythm and a motor of a show through comedy. And I think as a musician, and we can get into this, one of the tools I'm so grateful I've been able to put into my tool belt because of my performing with Anthony is understanding the rhythm and motor of a show. Because I remember being downstage center, literally and figuratively, at Carnegie Hall and at these concert stages, and knowing when I'm looking at my watch, I'm getting a little bored, the audience is going to get bored, or when to take a breath, and that it's okay for people to lean in. Oh, but when do we need the up tempo? So anyway, so I would say long and short, Hal for his dramaturgical and conceptual work, and Jerry for his sense of rhythm, play, and understanding of comedy.
Now, I know while all this was going on, you were also periodically doing your concerts and doing those things. Mm-hmm. When did the doors start to open for you as a director? That what do you your first directorial job when it was your name as the director on the show? What was that show?
I would say it's when I literally had a dream in 2013 of reconceiving John Kander and Fred Ebb's musical, The Act, a 1977 musical that starred Liza Minnelli. But I always saw it in my head immersively to set it in a nightclub and to have more than one person play the lead nightclub singer, and how cool it would be to take the songs, so I wouldn't have to get the rights to the book, mm-hmm. but to get the songs and to place each of the women, the female identifying actors, all over the nightclub, 54 Below. Did like 4 nights. I just literally, Richard, it was like just kind of like a set it and forget it and just like not overthink. I'm like old school. So I was able to, through a friend, find out John Kander's contact information. I painted the picture for him and he was like, I'm in. And he came to the final rehearsal. My dad has this beautiful photo he took of me and John, and you can see it on my Facebook. He literally has his like arms over me. And my dad, I could get emotional thinking about it, is, my dad's a big baseball fan. And also, I'm sure, very difficult for my parents at that time. We're talking 2014, when my brother and I were still performing nonstop. But I needed to do this thing for me. And he took the photo during the final rehearsal with John, doing this like, you done good, kid. It's like, with his arms over me, he took a photo of it and he said, Will, your first directing gig, and you're working with the Mickey Mantle of musical theater.
Wow. And you were. Wow.
Wow. To get that affirmation from a parent, your dad, and so that was a great experience. I got to meet some of my nearest and dearest friends from that production, including 2 Tony winners who've become collaborators and friends, Cady Huffman and Randy Graff. But also I got to meet John. And
you just mentioned 2 women that I love. I love them both so much.
The best.
And of course, I saw Cady as Peggy Lee. Wow. That was
another idea that honestly came, again, if there's anything I want to parlay to not even budding directors and not even artists, just anyone. I really am a firm believer that everyone's an artist and creator at heart, that if you have an idea, don't wait for anyone. I had an idea that, I forget, Cady and I both co-conceived it, but, I forget what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but
well, you beat me to my next question. I want to know where this seed was planted, because I saw Peggy Lee live, and it was just such an incredible evening of theater. It wasn't just a cabaret, it was theater, and it was so brilliantly put together.
Thank you. It's one of the proudest things I've ever done, because, again, whether it was the act at 54 or when I did, Our Guy Cy Coleman review, I wanted to create the Jerry's Girls version of a Cy Coleman show if I had $10 million and we could go into the booth for 3 months, But with Peggy Lee, I was so curious if the audience was able to eavesdrop in on Peggy Lee, maybe in the afterlife. Keep it meta. I'm all about theater is about ideas. Let people go on their own journey, but that in the form of a concert. What happens if Peggy came back and actually sang and said what she wishes she could have done? And it became a beautiful spiritual experience for both Cady and me.
Every word was actually Peggy Lee's. Am I correct? Yes. Yeah, I remember that. That was incredible.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you.
So, let's go back to the act for a moment. I wish that I had seen it. But getting this opportunity to just be in the same, moment with, John Kander, and to have this great experience. What did you gain from that experience that has propelled you even further?
I think I just started trusting in myself. I think as artists and as humans, we tend to doubt ourselves and listen to the noises in our head that says we can't. But I think getting that affirmation from John, from Cady, from Randy, from other amazing friends from that production, including Julia Murney. I had Anna Chlumsky, who at the time was starring in Veep. I got to meet Karen Mason, who's become a dear friend. My friend Stacey Bono, who just was starred in Parade at Encores. Nikka Graff Lanzarone. I think it was to just trust my instincts, and that just to go with my gut. And as long as I'm creating a safe space for artists to be their best selves and to build a room that's a best idea wins room, that's filled with joy, and for artists to feel like they can play in the sandbox with abandon, that at the end of the day, that's all we have when we put our head on the pillow at night. It's like, did I make, I always go back, Richard, when I get tongue-tied like I am right now, to a quote I read on my vision board every night before I go to bed and every morning when I wake up, which is Maya Angelou's quote: people aren't going to remember what you did. They're going to remember how you made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel such love from that experience. And so to answer your question, finally, I think I learned to let go, and just to allow myself to let go of the how, and to just be in the moment and enjoy it.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. You have to, first of all, trust yourself, but it goes even bigger than that. When you are directing a show, in the case of doing shows that are in cabaret, you pretty much pick your own projects and get involved on that level. It's not like you're being, and correct me if I'm wrong, please do, that you're being brought into a certain production saying, we want you to come into this. So obviously that artist has to trust you from the very beginning. So kudos to you for creating those safe spaces for the for the artist. But let's talk specifically. I'm going to put Cady on the spot for a moment about the Peggy Lee show, because it just resonated so deeply for me.
Oh,
I saw it twice. When when you conceived this idea of doing this show, what was your process creating the show from a director's perspective?
it's interesting, right? Because I was wearing the hat of director, but also essentially writer. And, getting in the trenches with Cady was, I wanted to just first and foremost, before we add the flourish, investigate the superfluous and get to the heart of the matter. And I wanted to figure out with Cady, and we did so painstakingly in a great way, finding out what the truth of the matter was. So wanted to find out all the truth, and then taking creative license on the emotional arc. So the process for me was laying a strong foundation. If the basement of the house was firm and truthful, how would we be able to take me and Cady creative license, but still honor, still honor Peggy in a way that she would have been proud.
Now, Cady is a brilliant actress. I've seen her in so many shows over the years. She's a brilliant actress. At what point? I mean, was the fact that she could? Did she know that she could embody Peggy Lee to the extent that she did prior to you working on this project, or did you find that through your process?
I'm always fascinated. I love to say that as a director and a creator, I'm in the business of devastation. And I feel like in an industry that likes to pigeonhole people, I hope that as a director, I can continue by showing and not telling, and through my action, giving people the opportunity to show skill sets outside of what people might, in a lazy way, just say, oh, they can just do that. Cady, at that point, I feel, was never given truly an opportunity to be still and really use all of that dance background and vivacious movement and va-va-voom. What happens? I was so curious of what happens if we were to able to bottle up, like Peggy, for Cady, all of that energy in those feet, like trunks of a tree from here to China, and have it just bubble up all through her eyes. Because that's what Peggy did. That there was such danger in Peggy that every flick of this a snap, every glance, everything was deliberate. Everything had the stakes of a Fosse move or a Susan Stroman kick or a big, brassy belt. I'm like, what happens if we were to take Cady Huffman in this beautiful arsenal of talent and give her a Marlene Dietrich spotlight and bottle up so much so that by that 11 o'clock number, our Peggy, for the assignment of the show that Cady and I built, had to burst. Something that Peggy really never did, but we were giving her the opportunity to do, if that makes sense. So I love giving performers, once in a generation artists and performers, a safe space to show a color, a texture, a tool that they may not have ever been able, to do.
What is your deciding factor when it comes to deciding on a project?
It has to scare me. And I think that began for me, Richard. I mentioned the act, but another moment that came right around the act was when I'll never forget the opening night of the off-Broadway incarnation of Disaster, the musical, Seth Rudetsky's Disaster. I saw in the lobby an artist whom was my North Star in terms of female, what represented like Broadway to me, in terms of like a female talent. And that was someone who has become truly one of my best friends.
Oh, wow.
Lillias White. And
my God, do I love Lillias.
I saw her in the lobby. I'll never forget. Talk about love at first sight. Don't tell my husband, but no, he knows. I saw her. And Richard, I said in my head, Will, you're a director? You're not going to direct and write and pitch to write and direct her cabaret. What you want to do, Will, is build her version of Lena Horne Lady in her music. And I went right up to her and I said, Lillias, she goes, hey, baby. And I said, hi, I'm Will. She's like, oh, aren't you one of those twins? And I was like, yeah, I'm one of those twins. But
I can hear her now doing that.
I said, I'm one of those twins, but I'm also Will and I'm a director. She goes, is that right? And I said, we're going to meet tomorrow, 12 noon, but guess what? We're going to meet at 11:45 at Vinyl Restaurant on 51st and 9th. Vinyl Restaurant, that restaurant, rest in peace. Long and short, Richard.
I know it very well. Yes.
The next day, we beat it out the whole show. And that began a collaboration that's been over a decade. I think that became the Lillias White effect. And that was my first rave in the time. Stephen Holden gave it a rave. And, that was nice.
A couple of years ago, I did one of my live versions of Richard Skipper Celebrates, and we celebrated John Kander on his birthday. And I had Lillias White in the show, Karen Ziamba in the show, Jana Robbins was in the show, Haley Swindal. I mean, it was just like I sat on stage with Lillias White singing And the World Goes Round in my ear. And I could have, if I had passed away that day, I would have died a happy man. Because I just love that woman so much.
Well, she's one of the biggest hearts. I mean, I could cry thinking about this because she's very special to me. She's my Lil, I'm her Will. Like we have it's a kinship.
Well,
there's a sister brother.
My love. Yes, please do.
I will, and we're working on something that I'm hoping on a true proscenium stage in New York. That's going to be, I think, a legacy piece in the vein of Lena Horne Lady and her music meets Elaine Stritch at Liberty for Lillias. And I'm very excited about it. It's not that I can't say anything. I just don't want to jinx it, but I feel like safe to just put it out there in the universe. It's the first time I'm really talking about it, that Lillias deserves a downstage center moment on Broadway because her story, Richard, is beyond the YouTube clips of the Tony Award performances and these beautiful, iconic theatrical moments. This is a woman who is a survivor, has been a leader in our industry for more than 40 years and talk about someone who has a childlike sense of wonder. But Lillias saying yes to me in that lobby of the off-Broadway incarnation of Disaster. Okay, baby. That, Richard, little old Will, that was the person I imitated. And so, again, to the artists and people out there who ever have that voice in them that says, it's really scary, but awkward, do the awkward, scary thing, because you never know. You never know the doors that it can unlock.
That's wonderful. Have you heard her recording at Archie's Place?
Oh, forget it. The best.
One of my favorite moments is when she says, can you hear me back there? I can hear you.
Richard, I'm a firm believer that imitation's the best form of flattery. You bet your bottom dollar that in every show I've done with her, I make sure that we place it at least once, where literally we see, hey, baby, yeah, right. Can you hear me back there? Yeah, good. I can sure as hell hear you. Just place it once. But again, she's great, Richard, and I will give your love to her, of course.
Because I'm crazy about her. Who were your holy grails? Are they out there? Do you want to mention them? You want to put it out to the universe tonight?
In terms of performers?
In terms of you to direct.
My gosh. Are there any? There are so many performers out there, Richard, that are so dangerous. I'm working with one right now, and I don't want to single out one because I love my cast. I'm literally in the midst of rehearsals for an industry presentation of this beautiful new musical, White Rose, the musical based upon a true story of students during Nazi Germany who actually warned Germans about the rise of this guy named Hitler, who was, loud and mean, and they were the ones questioning by warning people with these leaflets that this group, the White Rose, warned people with these leaflets that they put under doors, on bus stops and cafes. But the heroine of the show is Sophie Scholl, this young university student. And she's being played by beautiful Ren Rivera. They are one of the most miraculous talents I've ever worked with. And so, but the whole cast is absolutely incredible. So I always wanted to work with Ren, and now that I'm able to work with them, that's cool. Oh my God, I'm gonna get back to you because so many are going through my head, Richard. But I love new talent.
Mm-hmm.
I love new talent. I love scoping through Instagram and seeing the new talent that's out there. I love dangerous talent. I love talent that makes me lean in. Yeah, I can't think of anyone right now, but Ren, they're amazing, as is the entire cast of White Rose, by the way.
Now, flipping the coin a little bit, is there a director out there that you would love to have the opportunity to direct you? Would you go back to performing, or are you very much entrenched in where you are right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm very much entrenched in my directing. However, the directors now that I didn't know in 2007 that I would love to grab a coffee with and pick their brain is Marianne Elliott. I think that she, frankly, combines the skill sets of Hal, Prince, and Jerry Zaks that I love so much. I think she gets musicality and rhythm like no other director out there. I also love that she's able to place, again, I hate this word, but I hate it, but I love it, but I wish I had a better word, concepts on a show, but that she's truly able to, through her lens, not just put her stamp on it and be like, look what I did, that was so cute. No, but actually placing a POV on a show to heighten the material, if that makes sense. Marianne Elliott, she's badass. Mm-hmm. I want to have a drink with her.
That's great.
Coffee.
So you've been in this business your entire life. You've seen a lot of changes. What are changes that you absolutely love that you have seen in the business? And what are things that you truly miss that are no longer in place?
I'll answer the latter first. I mean, even though I wasn't around, but my studying of the musicals of the 40s and 50s and 60s and even 70s, there was just more room for play. I think that the musical theater landscape has become, it's this business is always tough, but the sense of danger, again, in the sense of risk, is kind of out the window. So I wish at times that if there were, I know it's show business, but I wish that our industry would take a look at more, and it's happening slowly but surely, with the fun homes, the Hades towns, the strange loops. I just wish our industry, our producers would lean in and take a little closer look at these really unique, exquisite, exotic bird of talents out there who are telling these universal stories in such creative ways, and to give them a chance. Give them a chance and a seat at the table. Now, to answer your first part of the question, I'm excited that because of the pandemic, I think everyone had an opportunity to be still. I'm so happy that especially the artists of the world have taken it upon themselves to also realize that as artists, we're activists and we can't keep quiet. And if we feel like there's some sort of injustice, and I'm really happy that a lot of those voices were amplified in a time when we were all forced to listen. It's like, in my mind, I'm like, well, it's about time, world, like, hello, but I'm happy it's happening. And that
It's interesting. Last night I watched Gentleman's Agreement, which I had never seen before. And and at one point, I mean, Celeste Holm became a friend of both Danny and me, in the last years of her life, and I got to know her very well. Danny and Celeste share a birthday, so we spent birthdays together and everything. Have you ever seen Gentleman's Agreement?
Oh my God, I never have.
No, I saw it for the first time last night, so don't knock it.
What is it on?
It was on TCM, but last night it deals with anti-Semitism and the complacency that people have with not saying anything and letting things go by. And I know that right now, not wanting to get political on this show, but there's a lot at stake right now. Yep. And a lot of people are not speaking out about a lot of things. When I think that what concerns me is for me, my word is my bond. And the worst thing that somebody could do to me, there are many things, but is to lie to me. And when we live in an age now where lying is acceptable, right, and has become, part of the rule rather than the exception, that concerns me. And it's these little lies, and thank God you're doing White Rose and the work that you're doing with getting these messages out, because that is what theater truly is about.
It allows, Richard, I mean, the way that you were able to thread that together to bring it back to why art is so important now, to give us as a society a mirror. In the case of White Rose, it's a story that unfortunately not many people know about, that there were these young resistors that I think were really the impetus to so many of the resistance movements moving forward. And that today, unfortunately, it's a timely story of it just took these group of kids to make us to ignite the pilot, in that it was a baton that was then able to be passed throughout time. And you look at all of these amazing resistors, and as artists, Richard, I don't know if you agree or not, I'm sure you do, but as artists, I think now more than ever, we have to use our voices as activists, because
this is something, even doing this show,
you bet,
if God forbid someone wants to silence what I have to say, or the guest that I have to go on the show or something, and trust me when I say this, folks, it is not outside the realm of possibility. If it's happened before, it can happen again. And I think we just need to, and I think it's important as artists, it's very interesting that in this profession, a lot of people feel, well, they're an actor, what do they have to say? And that they shouldn't be speaking out. But I think if you've got the platform, and I'm not going to mention the name, but a very well-known, I don't know around the country if everyone's getting this story, but a very well-known sports figure shared a video on his Instagram last week celebrating anti-Semitism. And when he was called on it, he lost a lot of endorsement deals and everything. His response was, well, I didn't make the film. I was only sharing it. Every single thing that we do, when you take on a project as a director, you're lending your voice to that message.
That's right.
The actors that you work with, the people that every action we take every day, we are lending our energy and our voices to these projects.
That's
so
right.
It's very, very important that we do speak out. So I'm going to play a little game with you as we wind down. And
Richard, I have to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. You have such a beautiful vibration about you. And I hope that people go back and see your other interviews and also support this show when and how they can, because it's a vibration we need now. I really, not to make a call to action, but I am going to make a call to action and put on my director hat, literally and figuratively. I really want people to look back.
Well, we might be talking because I'm working on a project and I want to talk to you about it.
Good, baby. Good.
That's all I'm going to say.
Good.
So anyway, let's have a little fun here.
Sorry.
I've got some fun questions. These are random questions. I've got these things. It's called an impact deck.
Ooh.
And I pulled 6 cards randomly, and I'm going to ask you as we wind down this evening.
Okay.
And the first one is, do something that demonstrates to your friends that you're someone they can rely on. We already know that through your directorial work and through your work as an artist and as a performer and entertainer yourself on stage. But what is it about Will Nunziata that people can rely on?
That I'm always going to be truthful, that I'm always going to be honest, and that I'm always going to give you the best I can.
Good answer. Good answer. Next, refresh your social media feed to escape your echo chamber and increase your mix of viewpoints. I'll mention this because I've mentioned it before. I'm leaving Facebook.
I saw that, Richard.
And it's a positive. On December 1st, I'm actually going to be doing a Facebook Live where I'm going to be thanking all the people that I have met over the years. But there are reasons why I have to do this for my own sense of well-being.
Yeah.
And I've made that choice. But I want to ask you, and Harriet Radinsky is here. There is a musical harmony written by Barry Manilow and Bruce Sussman. It is a true story. Yes, absolutely, Harriet. But I want to ask you, do you feel that because of social media that you get caught up in an echo chamber? And if so, how do you step outside of it?
Well, and this is, I decided during the pandemic that anytime I was going to post something to just let people know what I've been up to or what I'm doing, is I have a mantra of set it and forget it, where I literally, Richard, will post something and then leave social media. I don't spend time on it. But that's also bad because I have so many beautiful people who try to communicate with me or like something, and I should be liking, but I feel like once I get on that hamster wheel, I feel like I'm an empath. So if I like one person, I need to do everyone. So I'm a set it and forget it. So that honestly gives me the opportunity to set some boundaries. So I set it and forget it.
Good for you. Good answer there. What's your most powerful and vivid memory as a director?
My gosh. Oh my God, Richard. I've had so many. Honestly, today, I got to be in a rehearsal room at Ripley Greer with 10 of the finest actors in New York. And I look around every morning. I get there half hour early every day to rehearsals. And I say, I can't believe I'm making a living doing what I love, and that these artists are about to get in the sandbox and they somehow trust me. Wow. And that we're going to figure this out together. It was today. And every day as a director, Richard, I do look back at times, but but also I'm looking forward. I have some great projects coming up, whether it be, a Little Black Book or other new musicals that I'm the director of, developing. I'm developing a musical with Broadway star Desi Oakley, lots of new stuff. But to answer your question, today,
Perfect.
It was my favorite.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you as a director?
Oh my God, Peggy Lee. The first run of the show, the first run of the show, there was a line that totally did not come from Peggy Lee's life, but somehow like I missed it. And I'm so happy someone who knew Peggy Lee more than me pointed it out. And it was a beat. And I was like, how do you miss? But you know what? It made me realize that it's in the mistakes the biggest lessons are learned. And so I always,
you know what was it exactly?
I forget though. I think honestly, Richard, I blocked it out. It was such a moment, and it was such a moment of like, holy shit, how did I not? But it was a moment of me realizing that there's an opportunity in mistakes.
Absolutely, there always are. What's something you did as a child that your parents still retell the story about?
Oh my God, that my brother, that I would get underwear and put it on my head and sing and just sing. I just remember being 2-3 years old, just putting underwear on my head. And that for me was my activation of performing. So yeah, that I was.
Do you still do that?
You know what, Richard, that's between me and my husband. But the answer, Richard, is no.
Just asking.
The answer is
Where
no.
is your husband tonight? Is he with the dogs?
He's with the dogs upstairs, my 2 little Malteses. Yeah.
Oh God. Well, next time you bring them on. And this is my, it's actually a statement. Start a journaling practice and use it to explore how you feel.
Yeah.
Do you keep a journal?
I do. I keep a gratitude journal. I do.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, I'm grateful that you were here tonight. This was so much fun. I just love you. You bring so much to our community. And so I want to acknowledge you and thank you for that. Everyone knows I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. That's what it's about. That's why I do what I do. So I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. Don't go anywhere for a moment, because I'm going to have my closing remarks. And then I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to let you have the final word. It can be about anything that we talked about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with tonight. And when you say goodbye, the final credits will roll. Okay. But I do want to take a moment to say, because we are on the eve of tomorrow's election, your voices matter. Even if you don't think they do, they matter. Please, please, please get out and vote, and tell your friends to get out and vote, and just get out there and do it. And like I said, from Aaron Grillor from last night, he said, just as you go into the voting booth, just say, I'm doing this for the best, for the good of all concerned. And I think that's a good way of looking at it. We're all, as my dear friend Sean Moniger says, in this together, but we're not in the same boat. I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. But I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Last week, speaking of directors, Jay Rogers, did you know Jay, Will?
I didn't know.
Jay directed my last show before the pandemic. We created a piece together called The Magic of Believing. And Jay passed away last Friday.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
But we also lost Susan Schulman, who was one of the best publicists out there, as well as friends. We're going to be celebrating her. I'm going to be joining forces with Charles Kirsch from Backstage Babble on Saturday afternoon, and we're going to celebrate her. Jana Robbins, her mom passed away at 100 years of age last week. Oh. And then I'm going to share a very quick story, and then I'm going to, because the magic of generosity. So when Hello Dolly everyone who knows me, and we'll tell them what happened before we went live tonight.
Oh my God. Well, you were telling me a story, an unfortunate story about how one of your dogs died, but that the dog, Horace
Van der Gelder, yes.
Horace van der Gelder, we were talking about Hello
The
Dolly.
dog's name, everyone.
The dog, may they rest in peace, God bless America. But then, of course, Richard, you said, well, Will, while you wait in the waiting room, can I play something that you want? And I said, oh my God, anything you want. And you said, okay. And so you had your Alexa just kind of play whatever. And of course, it was Hello Dolly.
Hello Dolly, Louis Armstrong. It came right on. So I wanted to go to the opening night of Hello Dolly, and it was by invitation only. And I said, what do I need to do to get invited to the opening night of Hello Dolly? And a Facebook friend, someone that I had never met, reached out to me, and she said, I don't know how, but I'm going to get you to the opening night of Hello Dolly. And then she found out that Bette Midler has the restoration project in New York, preserving our parks and our highways and everything, was having an auction. So she went on and started bidding to take me to the opening night of Hello Dolly. She said, don't worry, this is my gift to you. My accountant will love me for this. So in the meantime, I win a contest on TCM. And I go out to California to present Jezebel, starring Bette Davis, at Grauman's Chinese Theater. I am on the red carpet, true story, with Lee Grant, Sidney Poitier, because they were doing In the Heat of the Night, Across the Street, and Jezebel. I am in heaven. And my phone kept going, bing, 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 because of the bidding that was going on. And she was letting me know how it was going. And it went from like $500 to $1,000, and it kept going up and up and up. And I'm going, oh my God, please stop. Well, we win $14,700. This woman paid to take me to the opening night of Hello Dolly. I am sitting in the front and the after party. We go to the Sardi's before the show. I step off the elevator, and the first person I see is Scott Rudin. And Scott Rudin goes, Richard Skipper, I'm so glad you're here. And I went, you schmuck. You could have invited me tonight instead of having this woman pay $14,700. We found out that the amount kept going up so high because another friend wanted to take me and was bidding against her, unbeknownst to us. So it just kept going up and up and up. But there I was on opening night of Hello Dolly. And I tell this because on Saturday was her birthday, and I went to wish her a happy birthday, only to find out that she had passed away 6 months ago.
Oh my God.
And this woman who I had never met, who knew something that was so important to me, helped me realize a dream. There I was on the opening night of Hello Dolly with Bette Midler. Literally, when Bette sang Before the Parade Passes By, I could have grabbed her ankles. I was so close to her. So Eileen, I say this at the end of my shows, everybody, go to your directory, your whatever it is, and reach out to somebody that you haven't spoken to in a few weeks, and reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call to let those people know what matter in your life, because it's important, and in the last few weeks, we've lost a lot of people in the theater community, in the music business, in the cabaret world. We're all connected, and we need to never, ever, ever forget that. And Will, I thank you again for all that you've done. And I am going to leave and turn it over to you. And you've got you've got the last word. And please stay in touch because I want to talk to you.
God bless you.
We're going to talk. Okay, it's all yours.
Oh, God bless you. Well, listen, you talk about generosity of spirit, Richard. You embody that, and you embody that like no one else I know. And you continue to show up, you do the work, and you give this beautiful safe space for artists to talk and to speak with and have a conversation with, something, I hope our country and world will do more of in the future. But when you mention generosity, I can't help to think about the experience with my twin brother, Anthony, that became a full circle moment and, culminated, I think, our whole performing career in life at that point. When I got to thank Downstage Center at Carnegie Hall, co-headlining Carnegie Hall with the New York Pops, and my brother, thanking our parents, thanking our friends, thanking our teachers. Our teachers are some of the most important people in our life. And it's because of the teachers of my life. I was able to have a career as a performer, and that I'm able to have a career as a director, because I've learned that not only I get emotional thinking about it, here we go, but I'll get through it. Not only are our teachers the ones that we learn from in school, but our teachers are the people in our lives that, if we allow ourselves to take a breath and be open to it, that we have teachers all around us, And I'm grateful to you, Richard, for, again, creating this safe space for artists. I can't wait to see what you do next. And I'm grateful to all of you who are watching. I see all of your comments. I see each and every one of your comments. I see so many beautiful people that I know in this room, and I'm sending you all love, all light, and continue to watch Richard and support this amazing show and this amazing man. And I hope everyone has an incredible, incredible night.